World Environment Day, 2022. The theme for this World Environment Day is Only One Earth, which puts a focus on celebrating the planet through collective climate action. The Trauma and Mental Health Report is joining the conversation by sharing how the climate crisis impacts our mental well-being through climate anxiety. Although our focus is on mental health, physical, social, and community health are also impacted by the climate crisis. What is climate anxiety? Climate anxiety, which is also known as eco-anxiety or climate distress, refers to psychological distress related to the global climate crisis and the threat of environmental disaster. This can cause us to feel worried, fearful, angry, sad, hopeless, and many more emotions. When climate change-induced disasters are experienced directly, there's a greater possibility for psychological trauma and shock. As of now, climate anxiety is not a formal diagnosis in the DSM. Climate anxiety can be especially distressing due to the overwhelming reality of climate change. People may have concerns about the future for oneself, one's children and loved ones, or later generations, in which case feelings need to be validated rather than brushed aside. Climate change and its mental health impacts disproportionately affect certain communities and groups. Those who live in areas vulnerable to the effects of climate change, or those who belong to occupational groups that respond to climate disasters, are affected directly. Indigenous communities specifically are at the forefront of both fighting climate change as well as experiencing its impacts. Other marginalized populations are also at a greater risk for experiencing harm from climate change as existing inequalities are exacerbated. Even if you live in areas that are less affected by the climate crisis or aren't at heightened individual risk, you may still experience worry for the indirect or gradual effects of climate change. So what can be done to help ease climate anxiety? First of all, it's important to consider that like any complicated issue, the answer to this problem is layered. On a personal level, it's important to remember that everyone should do their part to reduce their carbon footprint. We can do this by making climate-conscious consumption choices, such as using LED lights, reducing food waste, avoiding single-use plastics, shifting to renewable energy sources, and more. Having an emergency plan in place for you and your family can also help to increase personal security and foster feelings of preparedness and resilience. On a social level, it's important to engage in climate activism and work to bring awareness to the issues of climate change and disparities between different groups that may lead to some being affected more severely. Volunteering, sharing resources, and engaging with others can promote the feelings of connectedness that we all need to tackle this big issue. Finally, as reflected in the Only One Earth theme, it's important to remember that the burden of global issues is never individual. Every major decision requires a framework to support it. For example, a push for drivers to switch over to electric vehicles is not simply a matter of personal choice. It requires government incentives, affordability, and the availability of charging stations to make an individual consumer confident in their choice. It's important to do your part, but also remember to be kind to yourself. Seek help when needed, whether from a professional or a friend or family member. Avoid spreading misinformation and engage with other like-minded individuals. Thank you for joining us for another Trauma and Mental Health Report video. For more information and to access the resources used in the making of this video, please take a look at the links in the description.